live.
Here we are. We're a day late because one of us forgot what day it was, and it wasn't Charlie. What do you got going on, Charlie? Oh, your microphone's off.
Yeah, I muted mine. I was trying to.
Oh, do you want it remuted?
No, I just unmuted. I was sharing it. I've got audio going through computer, and normally I have my earbuds going, so it's not a big deal. He's doing some crazy stuff. So, yeah, getting ready to blow myself up here in a minute.
That'll be fun.
Went and got some whole souls. I think it's gonna be fine.
Did you check out that timing table I sent you?
Yeah.
That's like ridiculously too much timing in my opinion.
The what you sent me earlier?
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't get anything with it.
Just the picture of the table I sent.
I don't think I did. I might have.
Maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't send that to you. Maybe I sent it to someone else.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
I thought I sent that to you.
No, but I've got some hole saws. I've got a pilot hole committed in the gas tank. I can smell some fumes, so I'm going to be somewhat careful here. But yeah, I think I'm going to use my air drill instead of the electric. Maybe I should do it while we're live. That way, if something happens, somebody can call ambulance.
Yeah.
Should I blow myself up live?
You'd get the most views you ever got if you blew yourself up live.
Think so?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know who the heck I sent that to earlier, but it sure as heck wasn't you. Oh yeah, you texted me. Oh, I sent you the text of it, but I did not. The picture never sent. That's what happened.
Yeah, because I assumed you were talking about your car.
Yeah.
Was this the queen box?
I just I'm on the computer.
Oh, I don't think these are mine.
I'll show you my other contraption here for the boat.
Oh, okay. Oh, you got that on.
You see the engine cover?
Uh-huh. That's pretty nifty. Use that thing as a dump truck now.
Dump people off the back, huh?
Yeah. What's the lift capacity of those?
340 pounds.
piece or together?
Each.
Oh, geez, yeah, you could dump someone off that.
I don't know that I'd want, it might be a little hard on the cover, but I was looking on Amazon, the little hydraulic shocks are shot on this thing. So I was clamping vice grips to it, trying to hold it up, working on it. And I'm like, I started looking, I'm like, these power boats, they have these electric actuators. Why not? Hell, the electric actuators are cheaper or about the same price as those little hydraulic cylinders.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
shoot. Then it was like $30 for a little key fob and a wireless deal instead of putting a switch on it. I think I've got, if I can't switch this to my phone, or I'd show you.
Oh. Give me 1 second here. I gotta help my boy.
Okay. Let's see if I can get this thing set up in there.
All right, I'm back.
All right, I'm in the boat.
You gonna drill it?
I'm thinking about it. So
Show everybody that pump and stuff you got.
let's see if how do I do this? There we go. So maybe you can see a little better. So right here is my fuel tank.
Oh, geez, yeah.
So I've got pretty decent access to it. So plan is to drill that dude right there. And then the end tank. I believe this is the tight fit, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, because the other one was what, 4.5-inch hole you would have had to have drilled.
right. And I could have done it possibly. Man, that's a really big hole to drill.
Mm-hmm.
That tight of quarters. But I'm going to try. Ooh. Sure if you can see it or not. Yeah, you can see the filter housing. Kind of. But the original fuel line came into the filter housing. So I'm going to run the water separator filter. I'm going to run it from that in-tank pump to it, back out of here to the throttle body.
Yeah.
And then mount my return down here. But that's the plan anyway. I don't know if you can see that either. I've got to do a little bit of modifying the right here on the oxygen sensor spacer. It has a there's a pipe plug right there that just catches the flats of the oxygen sensor, so it doesn't want to screw in there. So I'm going to have to grind that down a little bit to make sure that the O2 sensor will go in.
Yeah, one thing about it, there's a lot of custom work you got to do.
Yeah,
it's depending on the application.
Right. So I don't mind some, but I'm not a big fan of drilling on this fuel tank.
No, I don't necessarily think I would be either.
But there's no other place that, I mean, I have the inline fuel pump, and
yeah,
this is kind of a neat little setup, but
yeah, I do like that filter adapter mount.
it's got the banjo fitting, and so I mean it's kind of a cool little deal here, but there's no place unless it's short of trying to mount this down in the bilge somewhere.
Yeah.
And to get lower than the tank, there's just no way that. The only other thing, I know that some guys run like a surge tank.
Yeah.
They use the mechanical pump to pump into a surge tank, and then a small cell. And that probably would have worked, but there again, I'm running another tank, some more plumbing. There's more things to fail, and I think this pump. This is the same style of pump that GM ran on GM and several companies, I'm sure, but it's ACES, but this is the exact same style pump that was on everything from like the mid 80s all the way through to the mid to late 90s. So,
yeah,
any O'Reilly, AutoZone, Pet Boys, something like that. If I'm anywhere in this boat and it fails, I should be able to run to a parts store and get a pump pretty easily. That was my deciding factor on that. This pump fails. Yeah, you can get them everybody, but nobody's going to have this on the shelf that I know of. Besides that, then I got to figure out how to run all where to mount the dash and stuff. But I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that.
I wonder if anybody 3D printed a waterproof case or anything for it yet.
Not really. I mean, I would mount it up by the dash, so it doesn't necessarily need to be waterproof. I mean, I'm sure I don't plan on if I'm getting that wet up there.
You're going down with your ship.
Right. My dash has like a big goofy compass thing in the middle of it. I'm thinking that compass would be a good place to maybe remove and make a mount or something for it.
Oh yeah, I bet.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Let's see. This big dumb compass right behind the steering wheel.
Oh yeah.
So I think I can make something there. So tell me a little bit about this Jackpot TBI.
Well,
learn anything interesting with it, or?
Surprisingly, well, I'll start at the beginning. The software for it is the identical software as the Jackpot 2. So it has more LS settings than TBI settings. Like, it doesn't have any TBI settings. So you have no transient fuel, GPS or map. All you have is acceleration correction, and that's it. And surprisingly, it dialed in it dialed in really nicely. Actually, it has way less hesitation than my personal Killshot 1 does.
Really?
I would venture to guess that it's probably more so the engine that it's on. A
That thing sounds pretty nasty.
pretty decently built LS3. One thing to be careful of, I think that I would mention if anybody buys one, would be to check the size of the injectors. This one had, in which this would have been entered wrong in the wizard, I'm assuming, unless that's what the wizard defaulted to and he didn't realize the size of the injectors. But the injector size was set to 36 pound per hour injectors instead of 100 pound per hour injectors, which caused some problems there for a little bit till I figured that out. But
well, I bet it did.
Yeah.
I'm climbing out.
I do have a lot of hours in tuning that, but the fellow that owns it, he doesn't speak any English, so we're translating back and forth, and there's definitely me not knowing Spanish, him not knowing English in our slang terms, and especially in the automotive world, things kind of get lost in translation, I think. But it's actually been a pretty decent experience.
It sounded really good. On the video I seen of it on TikTok, it sounded really good.
Yeah, after tonight, it's running really well.
I have this curiosity, you know. I can't imagine why you wouldn't do multi-port on it, but whatever, you know.
That's what I wondered. I didn't ask him what his reasoning was for going with the Killshot. Well, the Jackpot TBI, which is just a Killshot. But, surprisingly, it seems to be working out pretty well.
I mean, I could totally understand if you were going that direction. You went from a carbureted LS and you wanted to have transmission control. That would make sense to me. But if you,
I do think if I looked back at his earlier videos on TikTok, and I do think that was a carbureted LS before.
Right. So you already had the intake. You know.
So I'm thinking that he just, you know, all he had to do was unbolt a carburetor and bolt a TBI on it.
Right. I mean, I could see if you were trying to gain transmission control, if you were running a 6L80 or something as well. I assume that kit can run trans control.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it says in the description it does. He's running a built 400, TH400.
I'm just myself. I believe that I would go to a multi-port anytime. You know,
I would have too.
I wanted to do it to this, and the problem is when you look at the big block. Maybe a high ram I might have been able to do. Especially the Aces has like that sheet metal.
Yeah.
And the throttle body is right there where the thermostat housings on these are huge because you've got all the main pipes and everything coming up. I was afraid that I would have problems right there having the throttle body in the front, right there where the thermostat housing and all the hoses come up, where this would have been a multi-port setup. And I might still, if I can find anybody hears this that has a Mercruiser big block multi-port setup, I would be interested in it.
I still want to try a multi-port system on my car. The amount that I spent at the tool store today that I don't care to mention probably going to hinder me from that. Oh, I bought a bunch of new tools today. I didn't tell you that. and I finally have a decent torque wrench now.
Do you? Did you buy a digital?
Yeah.
No, what the heck are them called? The ones with the little clip. You unclip it, spin the knob. They're flat.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever one I bought, and
It's like a click style.
yeah. I thought about getting a digital one, but then I bought a digital caliper, and the battery has gone dead in it like 3 times, and I've used it maybe 3 times. I just went with the manual.
Right.
I do
the other thing they sold me, Snap-on sold me on the digital because it's basically a load cell. There in your click style, you need to recalibrate those occasionally.
Yeah, I've
And
heard that.
the digital is a load cell. It doesn't, as long as it zeros when you turn it on. If it doesn't zero, you have a load cell problem. As long as it zeros, there's no recalibrating it.
I do have a digital. I have a digital torque wrench adapter. It goes on like you put it on your breaker bar, and then a socket on the other side. I do have one of those, and I use that for like my lug nuts and stuff. And it's really convenient. It has a little tiny plastic case, and I just keep it in. I just keep it on the floor in my back seat. For
This?
Yeah, the exact same one actually.
This is actually a pretty handy little deal. I think it goes up to
250.
No, this is the 3/4 drive.
Oh, that's the big boy. Mine's just half inch. It goes to 250.
Because that's as high as my Snap-on torque wrench. I bought that one at Harbor Freight. What are these, like $45?
$47.99, I think.
And if anybody knows what I'm talking about on this, the Duramaxes,
Maybe.
the crank bolt on the Duramax torques to like it's 450, 500 foot-pounds.
Mhm.
So if you change the water pump, you have to retorque that. If you don't, you'll have big problems.
Mhm.
The timing gears will slip. I bought this for doing that. The only problem is you can't do it with the radiator in. This is too. By the time you put your socket on,
Yeah.
so you have to pull the radiator to use this. But it was cheaper than buying another $1,000 torque wrench.
The torque wrench I did buy. So somebody can correct me if I'm absolutely wrong. I read somewhere that I bought mine at Harbor Freight. It's the Icon, the little bit more expensive brand at Harbor Freight. The half-inch click style torque wrench, the flat one that I bought. I read somewhere that the same company manufactures that Icon wrench and the Snap-on wrench. That they're the exact same wrench.
I don't know how true that is, but I mean the castings definitely look a lot alike.
Mm-hmm.
The Icon ratchets and
my buddy does have a Snap-on one that's identical to that. I'm gonna have
no, I don't have any problem with those Icon things. I mean, they're pretty. I've got a lot of Snap-on sockets and ratchets, and
truthfully, some of that Icon stuff is pretty damn expensive.
yeah, it's pricey. I think it's pretty decent quality, though. I mean,
yeah, this is the first Icon tool I bought. I don't, unless it's a detrimental tool to what I do. I usually buy it pretty much all my hand tools and stuff at Harbor Freight. For the most part, like I don't get too picky about my tools. I do like having a nicer ratchet though, with a lot more clicks than the old Craftsman that was about 1 click per revolution.
So that's I went doing. Previously, I worked for a big truck shop, so we had a torque wrench that went up to like 600 foot-pounds. Big.
Oh yeah, we have one of those that work.
And I didn't have one myself personally, so when I started doing this on my own, I'm like, moved here. I wasn't even thinking about it. I took on a Duramax water pump. Well, you have to pull that.
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't have any. I've got breakover bars and stuff, so I actually went into Harbor Freight and I bought this 3/4 inch.
Oh yeah, the extendable.
This thing, and if you've ever busted loose one of those crank bolts on a Duramax, I mean, I've got a standard 1/2 inch breakover bar over there that has a nice curve in it from
Oh
putting
yeah.
a cheater pipe on to break those loose. I mean, you have a tool to hold the flywheel, and those things are, man, I put this on it, and I mean, I still had to use some force, but this 3/4 drive deal worked amazing. This thing's, extends out, I think,
That's a
to
big boy.
36, 40 inches, something like that.
That is one thing I still need to buy that I don't use very often, but anytime I need it, I always have to hunt one down. Is a 3/4 drive set, a ratchet, a breaker bar, and
Right.
some sockets, because I probably only ran into it maybe, I don't know, 5 or 10 times in my life where I actually needed one, but anytime I did, I had to go through a couple people before I was able to find one I could borrow.
And that snap-on, from that Irwin load cell type extension
Yeah.
to torquing, I've torqued wheels, at fairly low torque, 90 to 100 foot-pounds,
Mm-hmm.
to cylinder head bolts. And I busted that thing out of the package just to see how close it was to and it's within like 0.2 of a foot-pound
Really?
of reading the exact same thing my snap-on torque wrench does. So I would say that thing is fairly accurate,
So with my 1/2 inch drive, which I had no business doing this, I didn't have any other torque wrench at the time, and I was putting my intake manifold on my car. So I think I had an extension on it and maybe even a freaking universal joint just to try to get some kind of torque reading on my intake bolts. Well, I was torquing them down to whatever they are, 25 or 30 foot-pounds or something. And I ended up busting one off, or not busting it off, but stripping it out. No, that could have very well been that it was going to happen anyway, though. You know what I mean?
Right.
Plus, of all the shit I had on the end of it to get it in there, probably wasn't accurate anyway.
Right. Yeah,
I actually was able to save that bolt hole, though, so it didn't turn into a big deal.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with that thing for $40. I think it did.
I love mine.
It did a pretty good job. Fairly accurate. Because that was my biggest fear. Especially on those Duramaxes, if you don't get that crank bolt tight,
Mm-hmm.
that's what keeps the timing. For the crank gear stuff. A lot of guys will weld that.
I mean, that's my Oldsmobile. I just put the fluid damper on it, and the torque specs for my crank were anywhere from, nobody actually had a real number, factory number that I could find, but it was anywhere from like 150 to 300 was what I found. So I torqued mine to 200, I think.
On the crank bolt?
Yeah.
Wow.
I can't remember the size of the bolt. It's a big bolt.
Right. Yeah, on the Duramax that holds the cam gear. So there's a dowel pin that aligns that gear. It'll shear that dowel pin. Well, that dowel pin's just for alignment. People think that because it's just a pin, like a rope in it. The cam gear or the crank gear is held tight by a friction fit from that harmonic balancer. That's why it's torqued so high. So when that shears, it's a piston to valve vent. How's it going, buddy?
Good.
What are you doing?
Then
Eating a whole entire thing of cookies.
Sounds good. You'll end up big as me. You eat a whole thing of cookies.
Okay.
Be larger in life.
I think he's built like his mom. He'll probably never gain weight. You interrupted us.
no.
Charlie lost his train of thought now. Is the Duramax the only one that has a crank bolt that detrimental, or
That's it.
The
is
Power
a power
Stroke.
stroke like that, or
Power Strokes do it too, not quite as bad. A lot of guys will TIG weld the gear to the crankshaft on those as well.
what's that dowel pin that always falls out in the older 12 valve Cummins? They call it the
There's a-
killer dowel pin.
Yeah, it's between the inner timing cover and the block. There's an alignment pin to align that inner housing. So it's aluminum housing that goes on there, and then your gears stack on it. So
I got
that it can work its way all the way through, and it falls in and gets into it drops right into the crank gears, your pump gear, high pressure pump gear,
yeah.
and just wreaks havoc.
I've seen some pictures of what it can do if it comes out at a high RPM.
It's pretty bad deal.
Yeah. I think actually one of the guys he needed chunk came off his block and his timing cover was destroyed after that.
Yeah, I've seen, usually it just destroys the block and everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get lucky and it just takes out the gears. I've heard of guys breaking that whole housing. I've heard of guys breaking the snout off the crankshafts. I've heard of all kinds of crazy catastrophic stuff when that happens. So yeah, that one's definitely a good one to make sure that you got welded shut or whatever you need to do to make sure. I think a lot of guys, they make a threaded dowel pin to put in there.
The closest to a diesel engine I really ever got was I put a VP44 pump in my 2001 and new injectors. That's the extent of my diesel knowledge. Well, not knowledge, but that's the extent of any work I've really ever done on one.
They're not bad to work on. The Cummins they're fairly easy to work on.
Yeah.
They've got their own things that are a little bit of a pain in the butt, but
well, I'm probably gonna have to run, but
yeah, I'm gonna get back to work here. I'm gonna try to. I got to button a few things up before I can cover it up. I got a line of boats stacking up behind me this week. We're getting ready to start doing some engine swaps and a bunch of work.
I'll try not to forget what day it is next week.
Well, then we'll have something to actually maybe talk about.
Yeah.
Whether Nick has Alzheimer's or not, or early onset dementia. Or...
might be coming. But all right. We'll talk to everybody next week.
All right. See you, man.
See ya.